Uganda, Nyerere for Tanzania, and then this man, the late Samora Machel. Now, why am I mentioning these people? These people, in the period between 1950 and 1970, actually up to 1979, when Angola became independent, even Zimbabwe 1980, they did two fantastic things. They worked together on developing a strategy, especially the older ones. This one was younger, was 10 years younger than them, and made Algeria the training ground, the teaching ground for how you fight to regain your freedom. And without them, we wouldn't have this man. Because it is Samora who went to Algeria, sent by Nyerere, that later influenced this gentleman. But one of the risks spoken about is this one. Who knows this one? This is Frantz Fanon. Frantz Fanon was the author. He was a doctor from the island of Martinique, but he would go from Paris and settle in Algeria, and he wrote some of the most fantastic, I would call them ideological dispositions on how to fight a guerrilla war, but also said some interesting things that Africans are scared of taking over because they think that if you shoot a white man, he won't die. He doesn't have red blood like any other. He was very, very dramatic in his writing. But his writing influenced the next set of generation of leaders. And those of us who were in universities in 1990, we read The Theory of Violence for Liberation from this man. All this is Algeria. Now, so I just want you to know that this country sits below Southern Europe. We just leave history. I bore some of you who don't want to know history. Sitting in Southern Europe means that this country almost is like a basket in terms of trade, holding Spain, France, Greece. So the technologies, the interaction that happens in Southern Europe, this is the intermediator as Algeria. And those of us who are trying to sell coffee, dairy products, fruits and vegetables in those countries, how about understanding the behavior, the tastes and preferences of this intermediating country called Algeria? But also below it sits on one of the fastest growing regions of the world, Sub-Saharan Africa. And if you look at the numbers, average annual growth about 5% for East and Central Africa. I'm sure for Uganda will be 6 to 7% until 2020 when Corona hit. And these countries are less urban, meaning that construction, warehousing, transportation, these are still areas of need, and our consumption is going up, as I will show you. When a country is less urban, it means it has many unmet needs. I will say this: Africa in 2040 will have 500 million people living in urban areas. 70% of them are sub-Saharan. And if you are not in that market today, these are not Audrey's figures. This is McKinsey report of last month. If you are not in Africa now, sub-Saharan Africa, you will struggle with culture, language, infrastructure if you get in late. Now, they are less reliant on oil and gas, these countries in sub-Saharan Africa, meaning that their economies are a little resilient even when commodity pricing goes down. They need diversification of products and markets. That diversification is very important on both sides because we know what Algeria does and what Sub-Saharan Africa does. But we understand young people these days creating new businesses online that become mega billion businesses, but we don't have those in Sub-Saharan Africa. So just to give you an example, 350 million businesses in Africa today, last month, that are $1 billion worth of sales every year. I think Kenya, Ambassador, I will introduce some of my colleagues. Kenya has about 1 or 2. Uganda has somewhere around 900 million coming there. But Algeria, as number 4 economy in Africa, has a number of these. But $350 billion worth of sales companies are not enough, because the West has trillion-dollar companies, 1 or 2, that you know very well. So to diversify our products is great, and this conversation, I'm hoping in the next 2 days, allows us to do that. This is Uganda, so you can imagine, just 4.5 years ago, we were importing $7.8 billion, we're now at 10.5. Consumption is going up, meaning imports are going up, and some of us worry because they need to match exports. Our export per capita is very low. The reason I am here, as per said, as advisory committee to the president, is that we put our hand in the future and disrupt this. And as I will show you, sort of restore trade within Africa so that what is going in the Far East can be done with our African brothers under the common market for Africa. So just take a look at Algerian imports. So our colleagues from Algeria know this, so speaking to you Ugandans, just look at what I highlighted in red. Cereals, dairy products, sugar. Some of these are on our 13 strategic products that we're aiming to get $60 billion by 2028, as I will show you. Where I put red, it means that Uganda has some sort of comparative advantage. Competitive advantage, not yet. Those two things are different, and that's why we want some partnerships. I have people in here who export fruits and vegetables for a long time to Europe. I think Kanija is here, Mahmoud is here. They need to have conversations on how to sort of divert part of that trade into this market. I have some infrastructure people here who will ship out of Entebbe as if it's Mombasa. So I want to introduce those to you. We're very practical at Pasay. We don't want to, too much noise. We want to get the numbers right. So take a look at those figures and think about them and see if Uganda, this is our export structure in 2020, before Corona. Look at that, 43% is minerals and precious stones and gold, some of it coming from the region. 14% is coffee, is tea, is spices. So I have this statistic for Algeria. I need your help to confirm it. I'm told you import 6,000 containers annually of green into Algeria. That's about 300 a month. You roast and ground and drink and re-export this coffee. How true those numbers are, I need to verify. And Ambassador Sambu, the idea is that we can convert some of those. We know we are not going to end green very quickly, but I want to take 10% of that in a month and see if I can roast and grind and package at our free zone in Entebbe and ship from Entebbe as if it's Mombasa. I've had some people who have reverse engineered the import process and made it export. They're in the room. Now, if you look at fish, 3%. These things I'm highlighting in red are things I think we could deal with in Algeria. 2.4%. Let's look at that minuscule, $100 billion against $2.8 billion of your imports. Even if you give me just 10%, even 5% of that 2.8 in seed, in groundnuts, in particular products, I am happy as a country. 2.3% cocoa. The Honorable Minister of State for Trade comes from a cocoa growing area, and we have some brands in Trader Joe, in the US, in the UK. We want to put some of these brands to you, if that's acceptable. Look at mineral fuels, I'm taking a lot of time. Look at dairy products, buds, natural honey. So we do around 200,000 metric tons of natural honey, about 10% of that. And the US takes our honey, we want to divert part of that to Algeria. Look at the sugars. Last time I had a conversation with the Minister of Trade on Sugar Council, which we need to set up urgently so that we know what is it we consume domestically, what is it is excess for export, so that we can look at this market and really put some of that sugar there. Okay? That's salt and others. So wherever I put red, Ugandans take a look at that, because I think it's important that we are able to put some of those on the market. Okay, so these are our destinations. Last 3 years. UAE, 44%. Kenya, 11%. South Sudan, look at the numbers. Congo, 6.4. Look at Italy. I want part of that diverted into, for a higher return, into our brothers in Algeria. It's very small. Keep telling people, when I was last in Serbia, I asked a waitress, where does your coffee come from in this hotel? Without blinking an eye, she said, Bologna. I said, Bologna does not grow coffee. We have very good coffee from Sirocco. All we need is to process it for you and give it to you. Look at Germany, where I put red. I think we could divert a bit of that trade once we deal with logistics, transportation, and the standards we require. Look at Belgium. So where I put red, I think we could have a conversation. Now look at the sources of imports for Uganda. China, 16%, $1.3 billion. India, look at that. Kenya, I have no quarrels. Tanzania, no quarrels. Look at UAE. Okay, look at Japan. Now, I'm not worried about those African countries. But just to tell you, where I put red, if I combine them, it is almost 40% of our imports. It is $2.6 billion, which is more than 50% of our exports. That's the trade that bothers me, because we give so little to them, they give us everything. And we think this should be diverted on the continent, starting with Algeria. Okay? So, these are our targets. 2028 is not too far. $6 billion. So we're struggling with this, to digitize all our export documents, for example, to make sure that certification is good, to ensure that we know what did we sell last week. It's not URA, it's not UBOS, it's all these institutions all over. We're trying to get one spine so we can know what is it we ate yesterday and what is it we sold yesterday. 2062 will take a long span. Whoever is not here in 2062, no worries, it's okay. The country will be here, Africa will be growing, and we're aiming at 100 billion. So we take a long-term trajectory so that we're not locked in the now only. We put our hand in the future. So if you take a look at the 4 interventions quickly, and I resume my seat, markets. We're conducting research in Algeria as I speak. I think we started last week. We want to know your tastes and preferences. We want to know what you eat, how you eat it, what language, what customs, so that we do not give you stuff that we think goes to India and ends with you. We are setting up trade representation, so we have 7 trade reps across the world. One of them from Serbia is here. We want a trade rep who works with your council, the business council that Olive Kibong has spoken about, to ensure that we can follow through. And the second intervention we're making is to mutual recognition, standardize our conformity rules so that Honorable Timothy who's here, what he does with cows, for beef and dairy, what he does with crops, we can conform to those standards and say, this document represents the global standard for what comes out of Uganda, so that we eliminate MTBs. I can go on and on and on, but these are, so the third one is infrastructure. So yesterday, we began the process with the free zone at Entebbe to convert it into Mombasa, so that your paperwork, your multimodal road combined with sea is all done at Mombasa. I am happy we are launching more arrivals for Uganda Airlines. Yesterday, we launched Mumbai. Next, Nigeria. Next, we want Algeria. Next, we want London. But we're not landing Ugandans. We want to bring Algerians and other people here, because we're not just brothers. The brotherhood I showed you of the 60s should be translated into commerce. It can't be nice to speak about history if you can't convert it into jobs for young people. That's what we really aim at. It's not history for history's sake. It is history with a purpose. So all this infrastructure, aerodromes, we're working on them quickly so that we make this easier for tourist arrivals. And then the fourth one is we're setting up an export credit fund. Afrexim Bank is here. We had on and off conversations because we had not figured out strategically how to run this. Now we are somewhere. The government of Uganda is convinced that Chinese cannot find a market in Africa. I'm using Chinese as an example, they are brothers. They find a market for plastics, they borrow at 1.2%. For me, when I want to supply avocados, I borrow at 19. It's impossible. And so we are working on setting up that fund to underwrite invoices of exporters. These are the 13 key products we are focusing on. You can see fruits and vegetables, you can see meat, you can see banana flour. It's not 13, it's more, but we didn't want to be everywhere and nowhere. Each of these products is a wild running on its own that needs to be tamed from standards to funding. This is what we are working on, and our team is here. I'll ask them to stand when I close, so that when we go into breakout sessions, you can have one-on-ones. I'm hoping we can have matchmaking session before we leave. So what are the next steps? I'm really looking forward to a joint business council. What's the work of this council? That we get Chamber, we get PSFU, we get UMA, all these groups to work under one strand and say, what are the trade barriers we face? What's the transportation charge to Algeria? I now know that you can take 4 days from Mombasa to Algiers with a ship. That can be less than that if we know which ports of call these ships are going through and what they are carrying. So, Joint Business Council, I'm hoping we can form this as the next step. We want to announce these research results in February of 2024. My preference is we do it in Algiers so that you can qualify or say, we've done this with UNDP. You can qualify whether this is right or not. And then we have the Uganda version done. So we want to deal with this question of logistics and shipping. So I want to ask Ambassador Kilonzo to stand. Brother Ambassador Kilonzo is former ambassador of Kenya to Uganda. I have kindly asked him to meet with the president and allow him to help us on non-tariff trade barriers with Kenya, with us in Uganda. We know when you say that what it means. And he has been kind to bring me a company called Compact. If you could stand, Kamau. I want them to see you so that when we close, you sit at the back and see. If you have to ship flowers or grain from Uganda to Algeria, what does it take? What does it cost? How long? How do you use the road and the sea to get us there? This is not for Algerians only, but for Ugandans to know. So this for me is something we need to focus on. And then finally, this question of alignment. We can't talk about FCTA in words, but we really kind of keep putting barriers. Uganda is a very open economy, and we assume for Africa to have a geopolitical role, to grow its jobs, to give confidence and trust its young people, this has to be a deliberate effort. That I know I will lose some jobs when I bring here something from Algeria. Yes, lose the jobs in the temporary run, but gain them over a long haul. The same with Algeria. That's the conversation we want to have. So, I wanted to, this is our team at Passate. So Passate, can you just stand because I'm all over the place. I want to, where's Brenda? Brenda Opus and her team. All of you just come and stand here in front so that they can look for you. All of you just to stand there so we can see you. And I have put some numbers. Ambassador Farida did with this presentation. Put those numbers so that we are able to follow through. Now, so before I resume my seat, let me thank Ambassador Rosa Malango. And I want her to stand up. Ambassador Rosa Malango was a UNDP rep here. She went to New York. She made a personal decision to come to Uganda and become a citizen of Uganda. And she's the President's Special Envoy on international projects. And I have said to come under Pacific so that we can make sure we have industrial parks. They've got money from provident funds in the UK and the US, and it's important that these industrial parks you're working on, our brothers get to know you. But what more? She's the one who helped with all this design you see on the tables. We don't get that. So I wanted to thank you publicly so people can see you. And okay, so that's the first aid team. The first gentleman will sit on the business council. That gentleman first. Brenda is the one whose number I gave. That gentleman there, Moses, heads Uganda Connect. Next one, Mahmoud, you will have a conversation with the other group on logistics. And this is our team of young people in media. The other young lady behind there does standards and compliance. Alan is on the presidential directives. Please go and sit. So don't blame me now if you say we're always not taking calls. So let me ask you, gentlemen, my commitment is that this day will never come back. The 30th of September 2023, gone in the history of mankind, will never return. I just want us to put it to use with our brothers and sisters from Algeria and ensure that, one, we commit on capital attraction into our companies. Please open up your companies. They are small. If these people want to invest with you, remove the hinges so that they can take controlling stake in these businesses and they become their businesses. It becomes very easy to sell to them. It also becomes easier to trust your market and to divert some of the trade in Southern Europe that I showed you. Number two expectation is that government plays a role of regulation, but it also plays the role of timely decision making. Decisions that are not made in time are useless. They're a waste of time, waste of tickets, waste of hotels, waste of food. So if Africans can't speak freely to themselves, who do we want to speak to freely? Europeans? They need to know that the decisions we are making, you will be held accountable. Last night we had a meeting with the president until 11. We told him we are going to meet Algerians, and we're making a commitment as ministries of trade and agriculture that whatever we are doing as private sector, it should be done. If it is not done for us as per se, we move on because we have no time to waste. The private sector knows how we operate. So number three outcome is that we can be very intentional, very deliberate on studying the tastes and preferences of our brothers and ensure that we know what to supply them. And we cut down the fat in between supplies and ensure that when they ask for standard A, we give them A++. It's going to take a lot of work, but we have no other choice. The next generation will blame us if we waste this day. I hope all of you have this catalog. It has a few of the companies that we have qualified. We've trained them for the US market. At least on the scale of 1 to 10, I can say this company, 7 out of 10. Can follow through, can commit, and you can work with. We have also put Algerian companies. We want to make this 10,000 farms, 10,000 companies. That's our target. Tonight, we have dinner at Sheraton. I hope, Brenda, can I announce it? We have dinner at Sheraton for all invited because I was not in Algeria. The ambassador left me behind. But now I want to teach him to good dinner so that next time he takes me, okay? So that you have a meal and the president is aware of all this. That's why he has sent his ministers to be with us. So forgive us for whatever has not gone very well. Trust us for what has gone well, that we will make this work through our sister Olive Chibongo, Chamber, and your side, and through our ministers and private sector. Thank you and God bless you.